Music Therapy presentation by Norma Flores for the Music of the United States class. Good evening, Professor Hanwald and classmates. Ray Charles, a legendary musical genius, once said, "Music is powerful. As people listen to it, they can be affected. They respond." Depending on the instrument that is being played, music can evoke a wide range of feelings and emotions. For example, when you hear the soft melodic sounds of the harp, how do you feel? Do you feel at peace and happy? However, it is different when you hear the snare drums and samba beat. Why? Because you feel like dancing. We will be examining how music affects us, what music therapy is, what do music therapists do, and why it is beneficial for students with special needs. Jill Bolte Taylor, a neuroscientist who studies the brain, had a stroke of her own. She had the rare opportunity of studying her own stroke, going through recovery, and wrote the book, A Stroke of Insight. She passionately believes that the brain has two hemispheres that function differently. She explains that the right side of the brain concentrates on the present, while the left side thinks about the past and the future. Here's an excerpt of her video.
This is a real human brain. This is the front of the brain, the back of the brain with the spinal cord hanging down, and this is how it would be positioned inside of my head. And when you look at the brain, it's obvious that the two cerebral cortices are completely separate from one another. For those of you who understand computers, our right hemisphere functions like a parallel processor, while our left hemisphere functions like a serial processor. The two hemispheres do communicate with one another through the corpus callosum, which is made up of some 300 million axonal fibers. But other than that, the two hemispheres are completely separate. Because they process information differently, each of our hemispheres think about different things, they care about different things, and dare I say, they have very different personalities. Excuse me. Thank you. It's been a joy. Our right human hemisphere is all about this present moment. It's all about right here, right now. Our right hemisphere, it thinks in pictures, and it learns kinesthetically through the movement of our bodies. Information in the form of energy streams in simultaneously through all of our sensory systems, and then it explodes into this enormous collage of what this present moment looks like, what this present moment smells like and tastes like, what it feels like, and what it sounds like. I am an energy being connected to the energy all around me through the consciousness of my right hemisphere. We are energy beings connected to one another through the consciousness of our right hemispheres as one human family. And right here, right now, we are brothers and sisters on this planet, here to make the world a better place. And in this moment, we are perfect, we are whole, and we are beautiful. My left hemisphere, our left hemisphere, is a very different place. Our left hemisphere thinks linearly and methodically. Our left hemisphere is all about the past, and it's all about the future.
It is therefore believed that when a person is listening, playing, or writing music, that both sides of the brain are engaged. This is amazing. Elizabeth STEGEMOLLER, an assistant professor at Iowa State University, from the TEDx video titled Music Therapy and Its Impact on the Brain, affirms that music can activate the entire brain. She uses music to help people with Parkinson's disease. In her video, STEGEMOLLER demonstrates how she uses music that is comforting and familiar to the elderly with Parkinson's disease to help them to walk and dance with ease. Let's see how this works.
He's walking in time with the live music.
Sleeping, I dreamt I had you in my arms, and I awoke, dear.
And you know, I can't go with him everywhere he goes and sing to him, but he can sing in his head. Pretty amazing, right? He went from not being able to walk at all to being able to walk with music, and then eventually being able to walk on his own with music in his head.
Elizabeth STEGEMOLLER discusses the impact that music has on the connections that are made in the brain and how important it is to make these connections early in life so that they can benefit us in the future. Our brain has the amazing ability to create new connections to adapt, learn, and recover information. This is called neuroplasticity. This video explains what neuroplasticity is.
Neuroplasticity. You hear the term very often these days from smartphone apps, learning centers, rehabilitation centers, and even through athletic performance. But what is the term really? Neuroplasticity. You hear the term very often these days from smartphone apps, learning centers, rehabilitation centers, and even through athletic performance. But what does the term really mean? Well, let's keep things simple. If you break down the term, neuro means nervous system, which consists of the brain, spinal cord, and all the nerves that send and receive information to and from the brain. And plasticity, which comes from the Greek word plastos, meaning moldable. So together, neuroplasticity means a moldable brain. Originally introduced by an Italian psychiatrist by the name of Ernesto Lugaro in 1906, the term neuroplasticity was a way to describe how the brain can change throughout life to adapt, learn, and even recover from brain injury. But this wasn't the first time that the concept of neuroplasticity was described. You may be familiar with the famous experiment in 1904 conducted by a Russian psychologist, Ivan Pavlov. Professor Pavlov was able to essentially rewire the brains of his dogs to salivate at the ringing of a bell. He did this by repetitively ringing a bell every single time their food was presented to them. You probably have personal experience with neuroplasticity and don't even know it. As a matter of fact, every time we learn something new, we are harnessing the power of neuronal plasticity. You may remember.
As educators, we can also use songs to soothe and calm our students and engage them in activities which they may not want to do. For example, cleaning up, sitting in their seats during class time, or lining up to go home. Therefore, it is important to plan ahead to tailor the choice of music, improvisation, and instruments we will use to encourage positive behaviors and healing in our students. We do not need to be expert musicians or clinicians to use music in our daily lessons. However, it is important to understand the basic elements of music and the effect they have. This reminds me of my own experience in kindergarten. I was a scared 4-year-old and I had separation anxiety from my parents. But when I walked into that classroom, I remember hearing soothing classical music. This sparked my curiosity. The music helped me want to stay in the classroom without crying. I felt comfortable. Somehow, I wanted to be there. For this reason, I believe that it is important to create an inclusive, comfortable, and safe space for children. The definition of music therapy and its uses has changed over time. However, it speaks to the healing power of music in all cultures. The article Music Therapy by Bunt and Warner from September of 2020 defines music therapy as a relational contribution to the overall well-being of the individual, a reflective process wherein the therapist helps the client to optimize the client's health using various facets of music experience and the relationships formed through them as the impetus for change. Therein lies the key to a successful child. Making sure that we take a holistic approach so that their educational needs are met, while we use music therapy to bond with them through empathy and musical experiences which may or may not include oral communication. Christy Merrill, a music therapist, describes what a music therapist does in the video The Impact of Music Therapy. Christy is working with June, a little girl who was in a coma due to Kawasaki shock disease. Here is an excerpt.
Horn on the bus goes beep, 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 beep.
You basically have to go through all the developmental milestones as if you were a newborn. So working on sitting up and crawling, and you have to sit before you stand. So my role is, as a music therapist, is using music for non-musical goals.
And we were trying so hard to get her to, move her hand from literally probably a foot. And Christy got out this ocean drum that had, beads in it, and it made kind of a rain sound. And we could tell it was just, June was interested in that. And sure enough, she moved her hand to get it on the drum and to actually try to, participate and connect with it.
One of the really cool things is the first time June stood up and pushed her grocery cart to play a drum or strum the guitar with me.
Of course, Christy was doing all sorts of things to try to get her to walk from one side of the room pushing this grocery cart. And sure enough, she took, her first steps with Christy jamming in the background with her guitar.
She is doing so awesome.
Go, Junie, go! Go, good girl!
Go, Junie, go! Go, Junie, go!
Good steps, Junie! As soon as Christy would stop, June would stop. So it was like the music was making her move.
Can you give me 5? Kick that ball!
Kick.
Kick it!
As we see, this was a difficult case. However, the goal of the music therapist is one and the same: to help the student, client, or patient to gain the knowledge and skills needed that will easily transfer into other areas of the students' lives. It is imperative in the school setting for the teacher to work closely with the music therapist. This is because the teacher has a closer bird's eye view of the student through daily interactions. These insights and teamwork with the therapist enable them to develop lessons that reinforce the skills the child has learned. These observations can be shared with the parents so that they can follow up with their children at home and use the same music and techniques.